Welcome to another show, the Beyond Sets and Reps podcast. I'm excited about this one. Sometimes in life you meet people through other people, and I can't wait to talk about those connections. But without further ado, welcome to the show, Rashard Hall.
Dr. P, I appreciate the opportunity to come on and just share my passion and what I feel like God's blessing me to do for others. I appreciate the opportunity just to share my passion for scholar athlete development, for helping others measure success through how many they can bless. So I appreciate it.
Absolutely. So tell us a little bit about yourself, and then we'll get into how we got connected, and then we'll get to what you got going on.
Indeed. So again, Rashard Hall. I'm originally from St. Augustine, Florida. I was a scholar athlete at Clemson University under Coach Dabo Swinney, and he was actually my recruiter before I ever became before he became head coach. And for me, I was always an ambitious athlete. Like I was one who had the mindset, hey, I'll make $1 million on or off the field. That kind of mindset blessed me when I got to Clemson because I wanted to be an All-American on the field. I was, but I wanted to be an All-American off the field as well. So that really helped me really want to get the most out of my college experience, and really be able to gain the relationships and the resources that would not last 4 years, but for the rest of my life. And that's what kind of led to me kind of becoming a business owner. I spent 6 years with Clemson football in a department called Paul Journey. I look at it, it's the paragon of student athlete development. So I've had my background in corporate, working with Johnson and Johnson and Merrill Lynch, and then working for student athlete development for 6 years before launching my own company, Scholar Athlete Elite. And now I'm able to help athletes everywhere at all levels, regardless of sport, regardless of gender and level. So I'm excited to be my passion lies there now.
That's really awesome. So we got to talk about this connection and,
Yeah.
and get into that. So we have a mutual friend. So shout out to Patrick Sapp. Pat Sapp, one of my good friends, and I'll just for those who don't know, Pat played quarterback, I believe, for 3 years at Clemson, and then he played linebacker his senior year. Got drafted in the second round as a linebacker. Man, just process that. Played quarterback, started as a quarterback, like threw touchdowns at Clemson, and then moved to linebacker and got drafted in the second round. I mean, who knows? If he had played maybe 2 years in linebacker, he would have been a first round draft pick. But talk about an amazing athlete, an amazing person, comes from an amazing family. Well, he and I were teammates with the Chargers. We were
Yep.
more than teammates because we became roommates, and he was the guy that made the. I was an undrafted free agent, so he in my mind, he's the one who had the money and all the opportunities. But the reality is, we both had opportunities to pursue our dreams. And one of the things about Pat is, because of the journey I had in the preseason, playing with more than one team that preseason and jumping back and forth. When the season started, I didn't have a place to stay, didn't have a car. He was like, "Hey, man, you can stay with me, and I got an extra car." Like, wow, okay, yeah, let's do this. So he and I have been, man, really good friends going back. I don't even know how you count the years, over 20 plus years now at this point. And so when he reached out and said, "Hey, I've got someone I need you to meet and to be introduced to," naturally, it's all about relationships, right? It's all about those connections. So when someone like him says, "I got someone for you," then that's where we're at. So he introduced me to you, but I want to hear your relationship with Pat because that'll help people to understand the power of relationships.
Man, so Pat was a development offer at Clemson University while I was here, but we had a lot in relation. He's from Jacksonville, Florida. I'm from St. Augustine, so both Florida boys, 904 area. And for me, it's just similar to what you're saying. He was always a bridge off the field. Like even while I was a scholar athlete, he was one that was motivating me through his actions and what he was doing in the community and doing as a professional. So he was a blueprint for me. And as I kind of grew in my career and found myself leading some organizations, like not hard for you to believe, we've been on mission trips together and we've been serving, in the community together and helping others. And then I got the pleasure of, having his son, Josh Sapp, as one of my scholar athletes with Clemson football, and he's a freshman, but he's going on trips with me to LA and visiting companies like Google and Netflix. And I'm like, man, you're a baller on and off the field, just like your dad. So just so much synergy there. But if I had to just sum it up, man, Pat's been a blueprint for me and definitely a mentor that's really blessed my journey.
Man, that is awesome. So take me through your college career, what it was like. Take me through some of the ups and downs, and then what sparked this idea that, hey, one day you wanted to own your own company and then have it be centered around helping student athletes.
I'd say right from the beginning, I was a three-star coming out of Florida and I was a redshirt guy. I'll never forget, sitting on that knee last days of camp and, he's calling out who's going to be redshirt and who's going to be playing. And I had a decision to make right there that honestly blessed me to this day. Because for me, redshirting isn't just something that happens in athletic, it's a mentality. Like, will you trust the process? Will you really buy into refining your craft and getting better while you're in that waiting period? And for me in my career, I tell people it sounds like a death sentence to some of these 4 and 5 stars red shirting, but I tell them it made me an All-American. I bought in, I made that decision, and one year after red shirting, I became an All-American safety and was probably top 10 in the country in interceptions as a red shirt freshman. So my on the field, I was blessed. I was a 4-year starter at Clemson, but it didn't go without its adversity. I was a 4-year starter, but I lost my starting position 4 times throughout my career. Always had to, go earn it back. But I specifically remember the last time I did, I led our team in tackles after winning the ACC for the first time in 20 years. I had to get knee surgery for the spring, couldn't play. Then we got a new defensive coordinator, and I go from a 3-year starter to a second string safety. And while it hurt, like almost physically, Pat, walking into those locker rooms,
Yeah.
every day, like thinking I should be a starter, I had the most positive and contagious attitude. And right then I made a decision like, I'm not going to let man take away from me what I feel like God has for me. Like that red shirt experience and then going through, hey, I'm supposed to be getting ready for the NFL, but I'm a second string safety. By grace of God, I got my starting position back and achieved my NFL dream. But those 2 times helped me as I got ready to transition into life. I mentioned earlier I wanted to have a mindset of being an All-American on and off the field, but I took that literal. Like so much so when I'm, playing in the East-West Shrine Bowl game, one scout tells me like, "Man, how much do you really love football? You've had these many internships off the field. You've done this and this." And I'm like, "Man, this is a 7-year-old dream, but I know football ends one day and I want to be dreaming for the rest of my life." So, that's the kind of mantra and mentality I've always taken. Again, my journey wasn't linear. I always tell people, I was an undrafted free agent like you. I tell them I was drafted in Chicago O'Hare Airport, and it wasn't by a pro sports team, but it was by Johnson and Johnson, who's calling me with a career opportunity of a lifetime while I'm on the way to earn my contract with the St. Louis Rams. You know, I went on to, play NFL 4 games before being cut. But 3 months later, I'm in an OR to consulting doctors on ACLs and rotator cuff tears and medical device sales. So, my journey, really taking those intangibles refined through sports into my professional career, landed me an opportunity after Merrill Lynch with Clemson football. They had just started a first of its kind player development program within Clemson football that if you know Coach Swinney, I know he seems too good to be true sometimes, but he really does care about the 30-year-old version of his scholar athletes than anything else. So he was one of the first to actually put a department within his football program that holistically develop you for life. Visioned and started by Jeff Davis, which was his first hire, a player development uh, personnel, not offense defense coordinator, but Jeff Davis to coach life, and end up working for him and really developed some renowned programs, 100% career placement of scholar athletes, having them on internships from London to Hyderabad, India to 14 different states in the US with companies like Google, Def Jam, Netflix, Uninterrupted, you know, and just being able to also take them on trips to cities like LA and New York, even plan these trips in London. So that gave me the confidence to leap into my ultimate passion. You know, Pat, I was selling toys in the second grade and recruiting classmates to help sell my toys and my snacks that I brought from home. I've always wanted to be an entrepreneur, but even more so after 6 years with Clemson football, man, God put it on my heart to, man, take these programs and this development to everyone, not just football and Division 1, but all sports at all levels from D1 to D3, HBCUs, etc. So that's why I'm living my dream and my passion now, and I'm just excited to get out there and help the world of athletes.
Yeah, I want to go back to something that you shared. You said a coach asked you, "Do you love football?" Meaning because you had other options and you were pursuing those options and you were exploring those options. Do you love football? And that I want to address that to anybody out there that wants to question an athlete just because they are they have multiple interests if they love football. The character of that person who loves multiple things, who does see value in life, is going to have a perspective that is going to be valuable when the pressure comes. When the
Mm,
pressure comes, when the game is on the line, the person that has the ability to have the discipline and train themselves to be able to focus enough. Like, you don't want that. And I'll tell you this, Rashard. I had teammates, like I said, undrafted free agent. I had guys trying to make the team. And for me, I went in there with a college degree. And I looked at the people that had no other options, like, I have to make this work, or
mm,
because I have nothing else. And for me, I was like, I have to make this work because I'm committed to making it work. Like,
mm.
that's my mentality. That's my mindset is I love football. I'm going to make this team because it's just like anything else I do. If I start it, I finish it. Like that's my mindset. And I watched that pressure eat some of those guys alive because they didn't have other options. So for me, when I hear someone like you is saying, "Yeah, I love football, but I also love life." And I
Mm.
love life after football, whatever it's going to be. Those are the ones that, when the pressure comes, they have the ability to balance that out with a perspective that doesn't just do this internal damage, this internal combustion, and they just implode. I don't know. Maybe I'm not making any sense, but you have any thoughts on that?
You're making too much sense. Man, I think about a Barrett Carter or a Will Shipley or a Phil Maffa. To me, man, my scholar athletes were able to play a lot more free because they knew their value beyond the game. They were able to play a lot more free because of what you just said. But so you're making too much sense. They had been on trips and micro internships where they get career offers and they learn their value outside of sports. Man, the best thing an athlete can do is learn their value outside of sports and see firsthand, not by somebody telling them, but by experiencing that the same intangibles that make me a great athlete makes me a great career leader. It's going to make me a great husband, mother, father, CEO. Like, man, that's the best thing to happen to an athlete. And that's why I'm so passionate about what I do. I think athletes are world changers. You know, since 6, 7 years old, when you first picked up a ball or running track, like you were in a training and professional development program. You just didn't know it was for life, you know? And once you're able to have that uh switch flip, man, I'm just blessed to be have a gift to help athletes flip that switch, and their directors who develop them understand it at a level that, yeah, like they can be great at both. That's why I like the title of my book is, The Scholar Athlete, How to Be an Elite Athlete and Professional. Some people think you have to sacrifice one for another, or if you're not all in here, you can't be. No, That's why we prioritize. That's why we create balance, and that's why we have seasons, right?
Right.
So I'm
Right.
with you.
Yeah. I think back, someone asked me a question. I had a chance to play with, spend some time with the Denver Broncos, and they asked me about that experience with those guys during that time because the time I was there was in between Super Bowls. So fortunately, I didn't make the team. Maybe I would like to think I would have had a Super Bowl ring, but those guys were deep. They were talented. I wasn't good enough at that point in time. Something that resonates with me and I took with me into my entire coaching career was the character of the makeup of the individuals on that team. They were role models. It was a team. I spent time with four different teams. This team was different than any other team. They were role models as people, as husbands, as fathers, as friends, like teammates, like unbelievable type of people and unbelievable type of character. And to me, to if you're trying to make up a championship team, in my experience, those are the type of people you want in the locker room.
Mhm.
So each one of those, they had interest. They were passionate about football, but they were just as passionate about going fishing or playing pool or going bowling or hanging out with their family or Thanksgiving dinner and like on and on, their own businesses. No one questioned John Elway's commitment when you drove past a bunch of dealerships with his name on it.
Mhm.
No one questioned that. But yet someone will question someone who maybe doesn't come from that type of background. Do you really love football? No one's going to question John Elway if he really loved football, no matter how many buildings had his name on it. But certain type of athletes, depending on your background, it's like, hey, this might be the only thing you have going, so maybe it should be the only thing you ever think about or focus on. So that's why I think it's so important that the gift of exposure that you've been a part of to say, all right, maybe that's all you've seen where you come from. Maybe that's all you've been told. Maybe that's all you believe. But let me show you something else about yourself, about the world, about this life that can give you meaning and purpose so that not only will you be the best athlete you can be, the best whatever sport player, but you will be the best person you can be, which will extend way beyond the life of your sport and athletic career.
So good. Man, Pat, that's why like the elite in my company name stands for empowering leaders of influence through experiences. Like you talk about exposure. Like I always break it down like this in hindsight. I was all-American safety, but I wouldn't have had that confidence of my coach telling me you can be an all-American if he wouldn't have let me practice and play in games. I wouldn't have had the confidence to actually become that. So I take the same kind of experience for scholar athletes off the field. I need them to experience that they can actually become this, and it comes through exposure, and like you talk about those role models and those people of character being in place to be at, the leadership. That's why, man, this era of collegiate athletics, man, it's different. But I see now that, because of the pressures of winning, because of the pressures of NIL and revenue sharing, man, some of these men and women leaders that are in place, man, I mean, I understand it from a business standpoint, but we still have to keep in place like these are young people we're responsible for developing at a high level that's going to be our next leaders and our next role models. And I keep seeing, student athlete development, in some ways being sacrificed or not being as put as much attention into, and because of this era that we're in, and it hurts me, it hurts me because I know, and if I'm just speaking everybody's language, so I'm speaking athletic director or leadership or those people that have those real problems, I understand it from a business perspective, but understand it for someone whose passion is developing young people for life and career. Like you can do both. Like you can still win at a high level by putting your scholar athletes first. Like I was blessed with a program that transparently it was an endowment, but like we wanted a high level off the field, and then to be able to help, man, everything we did, it was a recruiting advantage. It wasn't built to be that way, but because we put our scholar athletes first, it ended up being a byproduct. And I wish that was kind of the mentality that some of these leaders in place have, that like, hey, let's put our scholar athletes first and we'll benefit some on the back end, because some of the problems you have are real. But man, you can't sacrifice humanity for winning. Like a lot of player development directors I speak to across the country now, it's like, man, we don't have the budget. We can't do these things. We can't do it, man. And that's a real thing. But man, that's also where like I love my position to be able to come in and help those with zero budget and those who have endowments and opportunities, to be able to see that, hey, we can't let time or this era be an excuse not to develop our scholar athletes at a high level. So you're exactly right with exposure and experiences.
So how do you convince people in today's age with transfer portal, NIL, revenue sharing, everyone has to find 20, if you've opted into it, the $24.5 million a year. How do you convince people that while they have to find that money and then hopefully the NIL is the people in the community and the people associated with the program step up and do their part so that you can get the top athletes, so that you can have a chance to win games, so that you can keep your job.
Indeed.
How do you convince them that, all right, you you need to care about this athlete as a person, when the mentality might be, well, they might only be here for 8 months. They're on 8 month contracts, or they're only going to be here a year and they might train. How do you, I mean, you got freshmen that are showing up on campus that might be 17 years old, and then you have someone that is in their seventh year. Like, how do you convince leaders that this is still valuable?
Man, I'm glad you asked that question. And I know some people going to roll their eyes to this answer, and some's going to a eureka moment. And for me, that's blessings in itself. But for me, it's how do we develop our scholar athletes holistically while still creating a recruiting advantage that's bringing in the top athletes, so that the university is winning, the administration's winning, and our student athletes are winning. It also is a conjunction with helping development officers who raise money not look at, student athlete development who would love to talk to donors and have them sponsor stuff, not as an enemy, but as an ally. Because like there's people out there who want to pour into these student athletes as people, help them develop their future. Like great alumni come back and give their time, treasure, and their talent and time. Like if you're able to convince them that there are donors that aren't even at the table because you don't have anything they can even give to right now. But when you actually open it up and show them your student athlete development department and some of the things that you want to do to develop them holistically, hey, they come to the table now. And the possibilities can be endless once they are able to come to the table and put their heart and their time into something that they really care about. When you're able to create these exposure experiences that we're both talking about, now we're able to like show parents and student athletes why coming to my university is a great decision, not just for them on the field achieving their pro dreams, but it's also a great decision from the aspect that they're going to go pro regardless. So when you're able to create these type of things, it creates a recruiting advantage that enhances the opportunities to fundraise as well. That bona fide helps you to be able to create great people, great leaders, great future CEOs that in full circle, they're going to come back and give their time, talent, and treasure to your university because they remember that even in this crazy era, when it seems crazy to even invest in student athlete development at this level, man, they cared about me. They cared about the 30-year-old version of me. So I know this may seem wild to some people or far-fetched, but man, I've seen it work time and time again. Like, so when you are able to do that, that's the first two ways or my first thoughts when you're thinking about how in this crazy era when it's real, like it is real the way you just described, but these lives are real too. These are real people. And 18, man, Jeff Davis said it the best for me. And it's off a little bit off topic, but it still folds into the fold. 18 to 22-year-olds, you talk about their decision making, whether it's 8 months or 7 years. But he said to me one time, like, young people are going to spend money. Like, they're going to. I know y'all are scared of them being future 30 for 30s, but hey, let's show them how they should spend their money and how they should invest it. So it's the same thing, whether it's talking about young people are going to spend money, let's just shape the way they spend it. It's the same thing about, hey, young people are going to make decisions, but hey, let's not be shy away from giving them up front some of these best practices and stop thinking that we are just the people to tell them, but let's bring in the people who have went through it to be their testimonies, who they can actually learn from and be their blueprint. That's why, just lastly, I can tell a scholar athlete all day long, like, hey man, you got it. You can have a top career in marketing and sales and finance with some of these no, but I'd rather put them in front of Google. I'd rather put them in front of Ogilvy and Mather. I'd rather put them in front, so experience and exposures that can affect recruiting, give you an advantage. And also just be able to, hey, bring some donors to the table that aren't even at the table because you're scared to expose an opportunity because you think you're going to lose money. So I think about this stuff all the time, but that would be kind of my initial thoughts on it.
No, I appreciate that. That brings a lot of clarity. Something else I think that can help bring some clarity because we use a word in collegiate athletics interchangeably, the word development. We use it in different contexts, in different situations. So there's student athlete development, there's athletic development, there is the developmental fundraising definition of development. Explain the difference when we say development, because you mentioned the word, but you used it in the context we use it. But some people may be confused, like, what are we talking about? Are we talking about getting somebody bigger, faster, stronger? Then are we talking about them becoming a better, person through community engagement? Or you talking about money? Like, what what is it?
No, that's good. And I'm glad you pointed that out. And we do need to have some verbiage updates, not to confuse. So the GOAT himself and what you're a leader of and renowned, that's, a lot of strength and conditioning development, right? So that's a kind of development, student athlete development. Think of it as in maybe three pillars. You got your personal and leadership development. You got your career and professional development, and you got your life skills and community engagement and civic engagement development. That's holistic development. That's why when I say scholar athlete development, to me, it helps with some of those differentiations that you talk about. So I don't say student athlete development, I say scholar athlete development. I'll give a quick backstory on that too. But to continue, player development at a lot of schools is going to be not student athlete development, but kind of developing the the players on the team, but it's not from a holistic life standpoint. It's not from a strength and conditioning standpoint. It's developing them to be the greatest return on investment for the program that they can be. And then maybe we should change, the athletic development that really is fundraising for scholarships and NIL and these different things. Maybe that should be capital development, or we should just straight up call it now capital and NIL development. But those are kind of the four or five specifically that I think about when you point that out so eloquently.
Yeah, I appreciate you helping bring some clarity to that. In terms of fundraising and talking to donors, what's some advice that you give people that because maybe someone does want to bring a Rashard Hall in. Maybe they want to have someone from the outside come in and speak to their athletes, but you need funding to do that. So
Mhm.
what are some tricks of the trade you can give people in terms of like, they need to be able to talk to donors. They need to be able to give them some ideas and present something so that that person says, you know what, I know I bought season tickets. I know I've contributed to NIL. I know I've bought parking passes, but I also want to make sure that they're developing as people. So what's some advice you give, or what's some strategies that are out there to talk to donors?
The first two people that you need to talk to is your head coaches and development. Capital fundraising, athletic development, the money part, the money engine of it. And I even know the pressure behind some head coaches kind of getting in this fight as well. I'm realistic to all of these things, but I'm just telling you, if there's a head coach who says, yes, I understand where we are, but I still want to take care of my scholar athletes. I'm responsible for them. I told their parents in recruiting that I'm going to take them from young girls to women or young men, young, boys to men. If you made those promises, then most head coaches will step beside you if you come into their office and have a transparent conversation. And to be honest, it's getting them on board with helping to talk to across the street so that they don't look at us as a vice or an enemy, but look at us as an ally that should be working together. Like, let's actually have a conversation. So the first part is, yeah, gaining the support of your leaders within your sport to be able to get you those conversations to work it out. Every university is going to be different. So, but when you can get at the table and over a series of meetings, talk about, okay, how can we attempt to achieve both? If we never talk, we're both going to just be saying it's impossible. Like, we can't have donors that, are given to NIL. Now they have something else that they want to get. Well, hey, let's just figure it out together. So, like, I don't have the full well, I don't have a full playbook in time to unlay it like literally right now what those conversations look like, but at least enough to get at the table and have conversations to say, hey, what does it look like for our department who wants to be in front of some of these companies and want to do some of these experiences that are going to develop our athletes? What does it look like to have that sponsored by a company who sees the value and want to hire our student athletes anyway? Like, they come in at the ninth hour to want to hire an athlete when they could have had the runway since they were a freshman to be a part of their development. So companies even want more access to these athletes, but you have gatekeepers at certain universities. It's like, yeah, I'm not going to even let you know that like they're interested unless it's part of the contract. You know what I mean? Like, this company is our financial backer. They want to do financial literacy for sports. Okay, okay, then we're gonna make the introduction. Stuff like that happens, but no, let's start it up on. So it just starts with the conversation and working it out like any other thing. Um, I'll say this. I got to live through the era of us being through one of the world's deadliest pandemics. Okay. And I always take the standpoint of, if we can figure out how to still play sports through the world's deadliest pandemics, there's not a lot we can't figure out if we just sit down and have those conversations about doing the best thing for our student athletes. Like, that's my standpoint.
I love it. I love it. So let me change the subject a little bit.
Yeah,
When
no.
you're talking with student athletes, what questions are they asking? Where are they in 2025 versus maybe where they were in 2020? Has it changed? Has the conversation changed? Is their interest changed? Has their outlook, their perceptions, what they want to accomplish, have those conversations and those questions changed?
Man, I love saying, hey, I'm from Florida. I can't keep it nothing but a buck. Can't keep it nothing but a blade. Like, yes, it's different conversations, but the reality is it's probably for only 5 or 10% of student athletes. Because when we're talking about all these conversations behind NIL and revenue sharing, and we're in a different era, like we have to understand that we're primarily talking about Division 1 revenue sports, which are football and basketball at most institutions. Most universities have 21. Some universities like Stanford and Long Island, they have 32 sports, and most of them aren't revenue. So when we're talking about student athletes in this new era, we have to think beyond just revenue driven, revenue generating sports for one. So when you actually awaken people to that reality that, oh, we're only talking about, 10%. We're only talking about 135 athletes out of 500 to 1,000. When they actually understand that and they stop thinking we're talking about every sport, because, swimming and even, softball and some, they're not getting the kind of money and having the same kind of problems and distractions that, Texas football is having, or just, and even, so I just say we start there. So some of the conversations have changed for, 5, 10, 15% of student athletes, but for the rest, it's business as usual. D1, D2, D3, HBCUs, etc. Is college athletics as usual. So I end that with saying student athletes want to be led. They want to be challenged. You're not going to know that unless you actually go and challenge them. But when you really peel it back and sit down with them, man, they want to be taught. They want to learn. They want these experiences. For the first time, for 6 years, I worked with Clemson football. And I'm telling you, man, Clemson's different than anywhere else. I know y'all hear that a lot in the news, and but it just is. But it comes from intentional development of really caring about at a deep level, from Grand Neff to Dabo Swinney and etc. But my point of saying that is I got the chance to work with some D2 and D3 and HBCU schools this year starting my business. And it's just a different level of hunger. It's a different level of want. It's a different level of a lot of different things. Not that my Clemson athletes weren't, because they were the cream of the crop, trust me. But when you're not used to these opportunities, man, they're so thankful and they're hungry, because to them, this is my combine. Like, you're taking me to BMW, you're taking me to Christie International Real Estate. Like, hey, this is my opportunity to shine and let them know that, man, these intangibles that I have on my sports team, hey, this can be on your team next year, affecting your bottom line. I'm your next CEO in the development making. So it's changed, but it's for a very small percentage, and that's what people got to understand.
That makes sense. Talk to us about your book and take us through it. Take us through the themes, the chapters, and why you wanted to write a book in the first place.
Yeah, shameless plug. Scholar Athlete Elite on Amazon now. Um, Man, I give this book away when I can, when it's compliant, for free to student athletes. If I run into them, I'll send them a digital. So it's not even about the money for me. Like, God told me, like, as well as I knew my last name, like that transition I wanted to make from internal athletics to my own company. He literally told me, not gonna happen till you get out what I put in you for every student athlete. And that's what this book is all about. I break it down into 4 quarters. First quarter freshman year all the way to fourth quarter senior year. Man, it's a super easy read, but crazy practical. But I wanted parents, I wanted athletes, I wanted player development directors and, athletic directors to know, like, from my experience of being an elite athlete, an all-American, a professional athlete, then being, on NIL boards, to being behind scenes at a Division 1 program, being inside the meetings, and, also being a part of the NFL collegiate committee, being like all this experience I give to parents, to athletes, about how to be an elite athlete and professional, but a key in mostly on the professional part, like how you take these opportunities to, man, make sure that you're developing holistically for life, but also how you're challenging yourself, but also challenging your teams around you, from your academic athletic advisors all the way to even your coaches at times. Like, you are a young person, you're a grown man and a grown woman. You're putting blood, sweat, and tears into a program. You should be empowered to have a conversation that know where you stand. You should be empowered to try that challenging major if that's what you really want. Now, understand the consequences. I talk about everything in this book, from this new era and rules changing from NIL to, even marijuana is different than when we played, and the repercussions. I talk about that. I talk about from redshirting to, depression symptoms in athletes. I talk about it all in this book, 27 chapters, that really helps anybody that is an athlete at all levels, really, high school all the way to pro, to their parents and supporters understand what's going on in this, not just this era, but what's going on in general. Man, that's why Coach Swinney blessed me with a great quote I agree with. Every college athlete, coach, athletic director, and student athlete professional must read The Scholar Athlete. And I put
Mhm.
parents and supporters in that conversation as well.
Man, congratulations on that. I know that process is one that requires a lot of diligence and determination to take it from concept all the way to a product that you can hold in your hand and distribute. So, congratulations on that. Um, Talk to me about your company.
Yes. So, man, Scholar Athlete Elite, the same mission I had with Clemson football and Paul Journey, I've extended in my own way. The way I explain it is I'm a career agency for athletes. Okay. People know the process of a sports agent. They identify talent, they develop talent by helping them train and giving them the resources to do so and help place them on winning teams. I do the same thing now, but for athletes, the 99%, by the way, that are going pro in something else besides sports. So I identify talent. I develop them through my career experiences and one-on-one engagements and sales academies within my company. So whether I'm putting them on a micro internship within their career interest to go get one-on-one internship experience around their schedule, or I'm taking a cohort to Greenville or LA or New York or Atlanta, and I'm putting them in cohorts and we're going to visit companies along with a career fair and a networking event. So that's how I develop. And then I place them on winning teams. So companies hire me to be able to find the best company student athletes to hire. They're hungry for student athletes. So, I have a nonprofit that works hand in hand, Scholar Athlete Elite Foundation. So that's how I make sure that underserved universities that, definitely, even if they wanted to, don't have the funds. Like, I'll go out and fundraise on my own. I'll find grants and different stuff that helps them to still have these career changing opportunities. But my company, for a company, I'm a recruiter. I help you find great talent. For a university, I'm a partner. Like if Duke football or basketball said, "Hey, I want you to take 25 of my athletes and we want to go to London or we want to go to New York and we want a career experience." Hey, I will come in and consult. I'll build out those trips. I'll work hand in hand with their student athlete development department or staff and make those kind of, investments that they put into their student athletes a reality. So I'm a partner for universities. And for athletes, man, I'm an agent for them. Like I treat them the same way if I was looking at Pat Ivey and saying he's a great talent. I want to represent you for your talent. I do the same thing with them, and they don't have to pay me anything. I'll tell you this, when I'm working with a university, if they want a partnership that doesn't cost them anything, like work with me to help place your athletes. Companies will pay me on the back end, but I'm an extension of you. I get to work with you one on. I get to work with your student athletes to help them with career placement. So I'm additional to your team for no cost at all. I'll get paid on the back end. I'm willing to put my calling up front, and hey, I don't need any money from you up front, but if I end up placing them, then I'll get paid. If I don't place them, then I met my God calling by pouring into a student athlete. So that's a little bit about my company and my nonprofit.
Man, that's outstanding. Um, I'm thinking about I have a question to ask, but I want to ask one before that. What's next for you? What's the next step? What's the next level?
I wouldn't say like this is my calling, but I have a extreme gift and talent for I call it NILO. Like I'm trademarking the term NIL ownership. And again, to both of our point, it comes from exposure and experience. When I was a student athlete, I was the one student, hey, I wanted to write a book, but compliance, like, hey, if you put your name on it, you can't sell it. I wanted to have a product and service, when I was in school. But hey, you can't do that as an athlete. So for me, NIL is missing one thing. It's the O, and that's ownership. So for me, the same way I empower students in career, I want to give them microcosms of entrepreneurship as well. So, I have opportunities and packages where I'll work with athletic departments to help their athletes actually have these microcosms to where if they it's a book or it's an opportunity to have them empowered to be entrepreneurs, then I can come in and do that as well. So I wouldn't say the next level, but I'll be honest with you. I'm just realistic about this era that we're in, but I just take a more true NIL approach to ownership, but also just an opportunity where I can work with programs that want to help their athletes capitalize on NIL as well for themselves, not just license out their name. But even that to me is a recruiting advantage for a university because they can be, hey, we're the first university that empower all of our athletes to become authors. We're the first university that empower all of our athletes to do such and such, from the entrepreneurial realm. So, there's some stuff on that I can't talk too much about right
Yeah,
now, but I got some stuff for athletic departments on the revenue sharing and NIL lens as well. But for me, it's always going to be holistic that
yeah,
puts the athlete first.
absolutely. So as we get close to wrapping up this show, I want to bring it full circle and ask you if you could go back and you could spend a one full day with the 17-year-old version of Rashard Hall. How would the day go from the time you woke up until the time you went to bed? What would day look like if you could put the agenda together?
Man, that's a great question. Um, Let me get a full 5 seconds and I got you. That's okay. That's a great question. 17-year-old version of me. Man, this may sound cliche. This may sound like what they say, the politically correct answer, but I promise you, it's not a lot I would change. For me, I was that cat you may catch on a random Tuesday that's in class in suit and tie, man. And it's because I took wise counsel from a sports information. Shout out to Tim Beret that says, "Hey, man, I remember a guy who did all his interviews in coat and tie, and people remembered him 13 years later and wanted to hire him." So I was one that I had like my book talks about yes moments, man. Yeah, like I had a great time in college, Pat. But I would say yes to opportunities sometimes when I was tired. That was over spring break. And man, I remember getting a career externship with Coca-Cola. And that was my freshman, sophomore year. By my junior year, I'm getting family members' careers with Coca-Cola because of that network connection. So, like, I would do a lot of the similar. Like, when I wake up in the morning, the opportunities really to get classes out of the way so that I can still focus on a love, which is football, but I never sacrificed kind of my future for that. So within everything I did, I took care of my priorities, which up front was going to be being a student. And, I talk about in my book, 10% of your grade sometimes is relationships. Not that they're going to give you a grade, but they're people. If you just develop relationships with your teachers, man, when it comes down to, opportunities, hey, I had to go out of town and I missed this assignment. Sometimes they're more lenient to help you let you make that up, have grace. So when you're answering your question, I'm saying I'm going to class. I'm not treating my teachers like, hey, I just got to be here because they checking class. But no, I'm interested in learning and growing a relationship with you. So that's from, 8 a.m. to 12, during lunch, man, I'm kicking it with the boys. Man, my now wife, met her in college. Man, I'm giving her time and opportunity throughout a busy day before I get to athletics. And that's the 7-year-old dream, but it's building friends. Like you probably, a lot of people, athletes may have this story, but 7 of my groomsmen, 6 of them were in my locker room at one time. So I'm still enjoying the grind and the process of achieving a childhood dream, but while making memories that last forever with friends. And man, I'm entrepreneurish and I'm a philanthropist. Man, I started endowment academically with Clemson when I was a junior here. So I'm still being ambitious off the field, and I pick my moments and seasons. Again, I talk about it in the book, but balance isn't 50-50. That doesn't exist. That's not real. Sometimes sports is 60-70%, and some of this other stuff is 30%. In other seasons is this. I was just one that wasn't afraid to push that balance, and I wasn't afraid to not give athletics 100% throughout my entire career. So it's not a lot that I would change, but you know, yeah. So I appreciate
That's,
the question. Thank you.
no, that was good. As we get close here, is there anything else you want to share that maybe we haven't covered?
We've covered a lot. I can't thank you enough again. I just want to give you a huge shout out. Because without professionals like you who look at young, ambitious, up and coming like me and give us a platform, man, one of my favorite artists, Nipsey Hussle, said is the best. Like, sometimes we're just looking for a platform to explain all these intangibles inside us, and we can't find one. So, for even with athletes in specific, man, when that ball goes flat, it's like, bro, sometimes we go left, man, we crash out. But that's why I'm here to be able to help athletes before the ball ever goes flat. Like I've shown you and given you platforms that validated you. So even after it goes flat, you're like, man, it hurts. Transition is transition, but man, I done took 2, 3 steps down, 2, 3 other dreams. So like, I ain't about to crash out. I'm about to dive deeper into some of these where I've already walked or built relationships or found my value in. So I just can't thank you enough for giving me opportunity to come on your platform, share my passion, share my heart. And man, I run a company and a nonprofit, but man, if you know me, it's really a calling, man. So I appreciate you.
Absolutely. Well, we definitely want to run this one back. We might have to double up in
Yeah.
the words of Nipsey Hussle. Uh,
Facts.
we might have to run it back. And but where can our listeners and viewers follow you? Where can they find you?
The best place is Instagram at Scholar Athlete, literally just spelled like scholar and athlete put together. Um, Also, LinkedIn, hit me LinkedIn, hit me in my inbox. For professionals, the best way to connect. But my website is if you heard something where you want to connect and take advantage of what my services are, my website is SCHATH elite elite.com. So the abbreviations of scholar, athlete, and elite at the end.com. And there's a portal on there where you can just request a meeting with me, and I would love to meet face to face the same way we're doing and just talk about the possibilities because there are possibilities even in this era. So that's where they can find me.
Absolutely. Thank you so much and have a great day.
All right, have a blessed one. Thank you.